3, 2, 1.
Well, what's going on, Metaverse Church podcast, friends, family? So good to be hanging out with you this week. Hey, you might be thinking to yourself, where were you guys last week? What happened? Why was there a pause? How come no heads up? Nothing like that. Well, look, simply this. I'm going to give you two big reasons as to why there wasn't an episode last week. First of all, technical difficulties all the way through. It's the joy when you use technology. You're dependent and you rise and fall by that. So what we're going to do today, well, let me give you the second reason. The second reason is my wife and I, we brought in our third kid. It's a small reason.
Tiny reason.
Very tiny, about 8 pounds, 11 ounce reason. We welcomed in our third child into the world, and on top of the technical difficulties and that, I was just like, we'll call it good for this 1 week, and then we'll come back strong the next week. So that being said, what Goose and I are going to do is, because we did try to record an episode to drop last week that didn't work, we're going to give you two quick hit episodes. So one this week, and then we'll have one drop next week. And these are going to be shorter in nature, just to kind of bring you guys just some stuff that we're experiencing, and then some stuff that would probably be beneficial for you to know about, especially if you're new to this whole idea of church and metaverse, and some of the same things that we experience. It could just be beneficial for you to know. So that being said, the episode, Goose, that we were trying to record a couple weeks ago was something that you guys experienced over at Cornerstone. So there's the lob, man. Tell us what went down in Cornerstone.
Yeah, so we're over in Horizon World as one of our campuses. It's been going fantastic. We had a Sunday that was pretty light. And if I remember correctly now, I believe this was Mother's Day weekend. And so there was initially, it really was just our kind of like our core team. And I said, hey, what if we went to just the public world and we did the sermon there. And and we do this in VR chat from time to time. We'll just go to the Black Cat, and one of us will get up on the stage. We'll say, hey man, can we get the mic? And we just start preaching, and it's always it's always hit or miss as to what happens then. But we've had some really, really great conversations come out of doing that. Let's say, wait, why don't we try that here? So we did. We hopped over to the public world. I said, let's find a place that's not exactly in the middle, but close enough where people, if they want to stop and listen, and they can see what we're doing, great. But we're not there to necessarily intrude on anybody. So we did. We went over there. We found a nice spot. It was kind of ideal for what we were thinking. And I started going, and it was, for all intents and purposes, just a normal sermon. And got about 30 minutes through, and I was really relatively close to the end. But and we had people that had come around. It was kind of interesting because we had our people, and then more people started to like pop in and out, sort of like come near us and then leave and so forth. Some people stayed for the whole thing. Some people tried to vote to kick any one of us at various times. Fortunately, none of those votes succeeded. And so that was what happened. And then around that 30-minute mark, I got to the point in the sermon where I, as far as I'm concerned, very lovingly but very truthfully said that you cannot live a homosexual lifestyle and call yourself a Christian, and you can't, those two things are mutually exclusive. And again, I went into this whole thing about, hey, listen, I have my own sin. I have my own appetites that Jesus has called me to lay down, and I'm no different than any of you. And if that's what your struggle is, then we're the same. And it's just a different flavor of struggle that, I feel like I went as far as I could while still telling the truth that, hey, it's not okay. Yeah. And, it was probably somewhere between 7 and 10 seconds after I said that my headset went like, oh, I'm being transported to a new place. And the message that came up was, you have been temporarily, and I don't know if it used the word banned, but it was a ban. It was a 2-hour ban. It said, you have been removed from Horizon Worlds. You have a 2-hour ban. You violated the policy, and so on and so forth. And what what had happened is, of course, they have moderators that are in these worlds. Sometimes you can see them, many times you cannot. They're just in there and nobody can see them. And I said the thing, and it was I was gone. And so now, that has never happened in our world. I don't think it would ever happen. I don't think we're at the point where that would happen in a world that we were in control of. This was the public place.
Yeah.
I would argue that it was just a natural discourse that is a validly held core tenet of our faith, that, nothing I said was hateful or anything like that. Of course, we would disagree. But yeah, no, that was a quick hook. And so, yeah, that's where we're at.
So here's my question, because you did this more in a public space. So when you're talking about Horizon Worlds in a public space, I don't know which one you use, but the one that pops into my head right away is like kind of like their common area where you can go. It's like kind of like their mixture between Horizon venues and Horizon Worlds. So you can go watch like different screens of stuff. Like it's supposed to be immersive. You go hop in and check out like the ocean floor. You can go watch a concert with Biggie Smalls. You can do all like these different things. And so when you enter into that area, there's like this big common space that everybody's bouncing around all the time. And then you've got these different venues that you can go in to experience that kind of stuff. Was it something like that you guys were in, where it's just like, this is like the go-to common area?
It wasn't the one that you're thinking of. Okay. Horizon Worlds does have a world that is a Horizon Worlds world with things that are particular to Horizon Worlds, with like little gadgets and interactables. And so I know the one you're talking about, which is almost like kind of like a big hallway at like a convention center. And then you can like kind of go into different rooms and this isn't that. It is a common place. It is a public place that Horizon Worlds puts out, and it is a common area. So kind of like the campfire was for alt space. It's very much like that. So that's what this place was. And so in one sense, I'm like, okay, I get that, it's their rules, their way or the highway kind of thing. And so that's where that is where this was. But like, there was quite a bit that was being said that was not banned, both by me and by others. Not that that didn't sound right. There were some people in there that was like using profanity and stuff. And then there was stuff in my sermon that was not exactly like not, I wasn't trying to be controversial, but I was just preaching the truth. And so there were plenty of other things that would have been like challenging, or maybe would have been seen as like calling someone out. But of course it's, just preaching the truth. But that was the one that was like, yeah, now you're done. Like, yeah, you can talk about all those, but you can't talk about that one.
Interesting.
Now, not surprised at all. That's where the world is. Meta is not a Christian company. Not surprised. Okay. And in one sense, I don't like it, but I can't say I totally blame them because, we've talked about this actually as we've kind of dreamt up like, hey, what would it look like to have our own VR social app as a Christian platform? And the thing that you and I have discussed is, well, what would we do? Like if someone came in with a pro LGBT like agenda and was gathering people and promoting it and in a public place that we have created, like what would we do? Like what if because essentially the roles would be reversed. Would we boot them or not? I don't know. I mean, it'd be a discussion. Right. Yep. So whether, we don't have to decide that right now for us, but I'm not surprised for them. I'm not surprised at all where they're like, yeah, no, we're not going to let you just promote something that is ideologically in opposition to what we believe. And so I don't, no ill will towards them. It saddens me, but I'm not angry about it. In fact, this was kind of thing we had talked about was when it happened. First, I was shocked. I was like, what just happened? Then I realized it and realized what I had even said. I wasn't even clicking what I had just said. I'm just preaching, And I was like, oh, right. I just said that. Oh, and it's kind of like put two and two together. And there was a moment where I was kind of bitter. And then I was like, yeah, it's not surprising. And then I was a little bit kind of like, well, I don't know if I'll ever be like brought into court and stripped and beaten for preaching Jesus like Peter and Paul and so many others were. But in the tiniest sense, like that was kind of like what would happen in the metaverse. I mean, that is basically it, which is like they're saying, don't preach the truth, and it was that. And so there was a moment of joy. I was just kind of like, wait, what? I was like, oh man, awesome. And then our people, I mean, our people are awesome, and they ran with it. I mean, they were still there. They gathered the people who were listening. They brought them back to our world, and they were like, hey, here's what happened. They kept talking with them. They crushed it. And so overall, it was like, it was a win. In my opinion, it was a win.
So were you not even allowed to go back to like Cornerstone's world? You were just kicked out of Meta Horizons as a whole? Sweet.
Right? Yeah, sweet. Now, so we talked about it. That's what I said. I was like, "Oh, that's awesome, right?" And but then so that's the idealistic side of us. We're like, "Awesome, we hit a nerve." Then that's the idealistic side. The pragmatic side is like, "Okay, that's cool, but like next time it's 4 hours, next time it's life, and now I can't preach in Horizon Worlds anymore, and that's not good either." I don't know if that's how it goes, but you know what I mean? Like at some point.
I know, but at the same time, it's like you can't be Pastor Goose in Horizon World. You could be Pastor coming back at you.
I suppose that's true. Yeah. I get. So that would be like Paul getting beaten to death, or like appearing to death, and going back into the city. It's like,
right, man, that's crazy. So I've had some conversations with people that have asked, like, so is hopping into the metaverse and bringing a church into that space kind of like street corner evangelism? And in some sense, I tell them, like, no, not really. But I feel like in the way that you guys did it, because I don't feel like it's street corner evangelism, because we usually set up our own events, our own environments, and people are coming to us instead of us really going to the people, I guess you would say. I don't know if you agree with that or not, because like in a sense we're going out into the metaverse world, but then we're setting up shop in our little corner and saying, hey, come check this out. But it feels like, from what I'm hearing from you, what you did was straight up street corner evangelism in Meta Horizons, and you got some hate for it. People are trying to get you guys booted. Nothing that you said up to that point was worth getting booted until obviously, like you said, you struck that nerve. But did it feel like street corner evangelism at that point?
Yeah. Yes. Let me think about that. Yeah, I mean, when we think about metaverse ministry, it's just a weird animal, because again, something we've talked about. It's like kind of slippery. To try and nail down, like, what exactly is it? And it's important to know what it is, because that informs our decisions. If it's missions, then there are certain things that we will and won't do. And then if it's church, there are things like that, that we will and won't do, and who's the target audience, even if they're different, right?
Yep.
And yet, it just, no matter how many times I try to grasp it and be like, no, it's this, it just seems to slip through my fingers, because, and ultimately where I've sort of settled is not, well, it's 50% this, 50% that. It's 100% church, and it's 100% missions. And you just kind of have to go with that flow, and every interaction and every sort of, event, and they're different. And so here's to your point. Just the one decision on where to preach that message really changed what the point was and what the purpose was. And if I preach that exact same message in our world, that's church, and that's great. And in the minute we just click some buttons and the pixels are different, right? Now all of a sudden that is very much street corner evangelism through a gospel message. And what that highlights is what the real point of the metaverse is. It's not the pixels, it's the people. And so the minute we go over where the lost are, and we decide that's why we're doing this, these are the ears that are going to hear it, in addition to our people, of course, but like, that was the point of it. It's like, now all of a sudden it has changed. So I love the metaverse for that reason, because you just have to be so nimble. You have to be so adaptable and nimble, and sort of and be a problem solver at the same time. And so I love all that. That to me makes the metaverse awesome.
Yeah, it is great. And I love even the way that you're just painting the picture of that, like the 100% mission and 100%, what do you call it? 100% mission, 100% just church. Yeah, because that is truth. Because like you said, you change your environment, and all of a sudden you can be in an environment that is set up for people to be invited into what it is that you're doing, and you're in control of that entire thing. If somebody wants to come in and troll and be disruptive and whatever else, like, they knew what they were coming into, probably the reason why they're coming in and trolling. But the moment that you walk into one of those common space areas, it's you going into that environment as the outsider coming in. And it's not a place where, as followers, we can just bulldoze our opinions onto people, but we're supposed to be coming in with this attitude of like, hey, I want to understand who you guys are, and then let me bring in my hope along with it. And if we can find common ground in that and get the opportunity to present truth and Jesus to you, then I'll take it. So there really is a fascinating aspect that for whatever your flavor of choice is, as a person called by Jesus to go and make disciples. If you're called to street corner evangelism, man, there's an opportunity for that in there. If you're called to just like lead a small group of people, there's the opportunity for that in there. If you're called to really lead a growing, thriving church within the metaverse, there's a spot for you in there. So just what you experienced, and just your two different approaches, even in Horizons on Mother's Day, just not only goes to show what some churches will end up facing, because I think that's going to be a common thing, not just in Meta Horizons, but it'll probably be across the board in some of the other platforms as well, that the more that churches hop into spaces like this, more that believers hop into spaces like this and are preaching openly and truthfully, we'll probably get shut down, get some restrictions put on us, which is okay. But you're also showing the vast options that are out there for people to bring Jesus into those environments. So kudos to you guys over at Cornerstones for thinking outside the box and doing something a little bit different in order to present truth to people. And kudos for the stripes that you took in the going of it. So
thank you. It feels really silly to consider that a stripe, but I get what you mean. Yeah,
for sure. Well, cool. So that will be the conclusion for this episode. So let us know in the comments what you guys think. Man, is it okay for any of these platforms to shut you down for what you're speaking or not? And, let us know what you think. Just I would say keep plugging along. If you're a church in these spaces, or you're thinking about bringing your church in these spaces, just know sometimes what you say is going to be accepted, and sometimes what you say will not be accepted. But as scripture says, the harvest is plentiful, but the workers are few. And so I would say, come on in. We would love to have you. But on behalf of Goose and myself, if you would do us the favor of sharing, subscribing, rating, and reviewing, we would love it. And we will be back at you guys next week for another quick hit episode here on the Metaverse Church podcast. So until then, be blessed.